freedomradio.com. This is Lifting the Veil, and I am your host, Cari-Lee. Welcome to today's show. I'm delighted to have a noisy microphone to Angela Forman on the show with us today. She is the owner and proprietor of the Gourmet Soap Kitchen. We'll talk a little bit about that today, but more of what we're going to talk about is basically the relationship with our children, what we should be doing to take them back. We've sold our children off into slavery without even realizing it, the same way our parents did to us. Now, the key here is that we want to share our experiences of what we have gone through, what we ourselves have experienced, what we have done to take our children back, and what we continue to do to take our children back. Now, with also, just to let you know, if you go to liftingtheveil.ca, that's www.liftingtheveil.ca, and you go to the chat room, you can go there and ask any questions that you might have for any of us. Now, with all that being said, welcome to the show, Angela.
Hey, how you going, Carrie?
Not too bad. How are you, love?
Good. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to tell the listeners, when I first discovered that everything was going horribly, horribly wrong with my father, I put out this big cry out on Facebook for any healers to come and help me, to do the best to give my father the best natural advice that I could so that he would hopefully be able to forego the idea of having a kidney transplant. And that day, Angela messaged me for the very first time and said, we need to talk. And since that day, it's like it's quite funny. She's a Gemini, I'm a Gemini. We are like kindred twin souls and have ended up being very good friends, her all the way in Australia and myself here in Canada. And it's amazing the connection that you get through Facebook, through all of these, through Skype, through other people, through all of our friends. It's actually Matthew Rowley. Big thanks goes out to him because he's the reason why we're talking right now. He was the one who listened to Angela on Vinny's show, and because of that, we're now friends.
That's amazing, and we have such a parallel life. Both of our fathers are very ill, and we've both had our children, terrible things happen,
Yeah, it's crazy. We do have so many parallels. Let's just talk about quickly, anybody that doesn't know, you can go to YouTube and you can see that there's a video on the Lifting Veils channel called Cari-Lee versus Facts. We did it as cheeky as we possibly could while giving as much information to people. Earlier this year, Family and Children's Services tried to come into my home to talk to my children, interrogate them. And because of the notices I sent and the stance that my husband and I took, they never came in. I highly recommend that anybody who is curious, and even if you're not, watch that video. It's important to understand what you can and cannot do and what the corporation can and cannot do. And taking our children is one of those things that they cannot do.
They can't because they're a corporation,
No, that's exactly it. But unfortunately, we don't understand what our rights are half the time. I would also like to direct all of my listeners to Mark Hollywood. If you're on Facebook, Print Owa Dala. He is on my friends list. I highly recommend that you go and see him. He also has a group called Cheesy Poofs. If you look that up, I'm sure you'll find it. But he even put out something about how to reclaim your children, and that is on his channel as well. This is something that we all really need to do a lot of work and investigating and research into, and not expect somebody else to come and do it for us. Because unfortunately, the way that it goes is you're either going to be a slave to the system, or you're going to repel against it and take your life back and be personally responsible. If you can't be personally responsible, you should really rethink having children. My 2 cents. Angela has a completely different story. Angela's daughter was in school and got incredibly ill. And Angela, please, I'll let you tell the story because you're the mom and you know how to tell it.
Okay, well, my industry is non-toxic. That's what I do is I teach people how to get away from toxins. And I've had 5 children. which I said on Vinny's show, we talked a little bit about it, but this is a bit more based on children's services today. But my daughter in kindergarten started getting ill. She's my fourth child, and I didn't know what was wrong with her. And what would you think? You just think she's getting a flu, because apparently schools are very sick places. Apparently, allegedly.
Let me go there for a second. Just for a second. I have to, because this makes me crazy. Your children played all summer together, all of them, all of the listeners. Your children played all summer long together. Were they getting sick all the time? No. It wasn't until about 5 weeks after they'd been in school that all of a sudden they're getting sick. Now, I'm sure that they're peeing in pools, and that's a terrible, terrible way to pass on bacteria and things. Why are they not getting sick all summer long?
Yeah, it's not until someone actually says that to you that you just go, light bulb,
For sure. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Please continue.
I put it down to the usual thing where schools are filthy places where children touch each other, and they get viruses. And my daughter, by May of kindergarten, she came home and she looked like E.T. when he was dying, It was pretty horrific.
It's terrible.
I didn't know what was wrong with her. She'd been well all her life. And, it continued where, she'd come home and she said she was really tired, or she had sore muscles. And by year 2, she had terrible eczema and psoriasis, and that's my industry, soap kitchen, that's what I do. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to ease her. I was testing her for everything. Is it cat allergies, dogs? Is it what sort of food? I went through everything. And in the end, I found out. And it was by over the school holidays. Her eczema went away. She was healthy. She went back to school, and she walked back, dropped her off, and she had no eczema or psoriasis on her legs, allegedly eczema psoriasis. It was actually chemical burn. I picked her up, and she had it back again. I mean, it was so severe the year before, because she'd gotten to such a point that they were putting towels down for her on the floor. I was thinking, is it germs in the carpet, and all these ridiculous things. And then...
That's terrible.
Yep, and then... I just suddenly twigged, what are they using to clean the schools with, after I picked her up. And I should have thought of this before, as her parent. I should have thought about this, because this is my industry. And even as my industry, I didn't even think about it, because I couldn't imagine that the education department would be using poisons at school. I got the 12 MSDSs, and I tell you, Cari, you have no idea. They were the most terrible poisons to clean that you could ever imagine. I don't know. What do you want me to say?
Well, okay. I just want to reiterate and to join forces with what she's saying, because my daughter would go into school before I pulled them out 2 years ago, and my daughter would go into school 5 weeks later. Here she is, sick and crazy. She wasn't crazy before, but now she's all scatterbrained and stuff. And as soon as I was talking to Angela about all of this, it made complete sense, because I understand that the chemicals are absolute poison. But let's talk about what kind of poison they are.
Well, you're talking about glycol. I can't even pronounce them. But the simplest ones, I've looked at the MSDSs, and I've actually got them down. Look in the break, I'll go and get them. But you're talking about stuff that actually says do not use around children, do not use for long periods of time, only for industrial use.
Kind of sounds like fluoride, doesn't it? Do not ingest even a pea-size amount, and you have to go to the hospital. But by all means, let 2-year-olds brush their teeth with it.
Yeah, well, this stuff, it says it will cause liver damage, cancer, chemical burn. Only for industrial use, and yet they're still using it. And I want to tell you something. The other day, I fixed in my shop. I work with skin and helping people with that sort of stuff, and with eczema and psoriasis and other problems that they have. And I fixed a cleaner's son's hands, because he had this terrible psoriasis on his hands. It was very easy to fix. It took 2 days, simple. And he came in, and he works for this company that is 80% of Australia. They clean all this. They clean their schools. This nasty, evil company, as far as I'm concerned. And I can say that, and I don't care, and they don't frighten me.
Sure.
But they have tried to. And he gave me these papers, these MSDSs, said, you can get these from me. that, here you go, this is what they're still using. And guess what? They're the 12 cleaning chemicals that I proved to the Education Department in Australia that would nearly killed my daughter. They're still using it.
And of course they've done everything except for, they've completely ridiculed you in this as well.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know. Where do we start talking about it? It's just
from
so
the beginning. I want the listeners to really hear, so they understand and that they see that when you do get attacked like this, or you do come to the realization that, hey, things aren't exactly as they seem, and now my children are in, and there's something that needs to be done. You need to listen to the strong parents that are doing something, that are not afraid, and that are standing up, because these are our children. They're not anybody else's children. They're our children. So we need to lead by example. And I don't want to lead, but I'll stand by your side if you'll stand by mine.
Absolutely. And so I started at the beginning when I was really scared. And I had 3 children who went through the school system, no problem, my older children. And my 2 youngest children, it turns out that in the 1990s in Australia, a woman named Anne Want, who runs Australian Chemical Trauma Alliance, removed the same chemicals that they're now poisoning the children with in my children's generation. She removed them in the 1990s, and she had that fight. Very interesting woman. And so my children are going to school. They get sick. I find out why, and I go to the Education Department, and I expected them to go, oh, my goodness. I expect them to say, wow, Angela, we're going to remove these straight away. That's the interesting part, Cari. That's where it gets really sinister. I was completely naive, and I went to them and I showed them the MSDSs, which said what they would do, which my daughter was crawling on the floor like a crab, literally. She couldn't walk.
Oh, it's just ridiculous.
And
just suffering.
3-year process of her being poisoned on a regular basis. And there are other children in her school that have terrible genetic disorders. And they're right across, the whole of Australia and probably America, and everyone thinks that it's just viruses. No. So at the time, we had meetings with I had meetings with the Education Department, and they conducted a trial at this school, at my child's school. Which, can I say the school? I might as well. Sturt Primary School.
I don't see
in Wagga Wagga. Well, I'm not frightened of them anymore. They've already done, we'll get into that a bit later. They can do what they like. But so we had meetings, and they treated me so terrible. Here's my daughter nearly dying, which she would have died, seriously, Cari, because that's my industry, is I know about chemical poisoning and I know about chemical sensitivity. Mm-hmm. She was at the point, they made me send my daughter, even though I discovered they said, you have to. They made me. I shouldn't have actually let them made me. Do you know what I mean? That's they made me. No, they shouldn't. I shouldn't. Now, what I know now, there's no way they're in control of my child. Yeah.
Well, no, they want to make you scared, and they're going to make all these threats, and they're going to make you uncomfortable, and they're going to do whatever they can. The thing is that you have to get past it. You were able to get past it, but I mean, of course, you're human. You're going to have those fears at the beginning. Exactly. Everybody goes through a process. It doesn't just happen overnight.
Yep. And I went along to these meetings and I was shaking because by this time I had adrenal fatigue, which a lot of people who are troopers, people who are doing the right thing, they end up, their adrenals can't cope. And, you run out of pituitary extract, which is another story. That's a medical thing. But a lot of people don't realise it's the anxiety. You can go to the drugs and things, but there are herbal things that you and I both know work.
Yes.
But I'd go along to these meetings, and what I expected was for them to say, oh, I'm so sorry, this is terrible. But no, what I got was ridicule, abuse. The treatment was horrendous. And I just wondered, why are they so mean to me? That was the state that I was in at the time. And I didn't realise, they said to me, no one's ever come forward with this ever before. No, there's been hundreds around Australia. That was a lie. That was the first lie that I discovered. But I go on to these meetings. So they conducted this study, which they've conducted this study before. They reckon it's the first one. And I proved my daughter got from the point where she was covered in welts and burns to where she was completely healthy. So I pulled my children out of school. Two stories were done with the local media. And
so they actually, that's something that is very important to understand, is that the local media actually did get involved. They actually did at first get involved, but then, of course, every story takes a twist.
This is where the twist comes in. I don't know where that editor is right now for Prime News in Wagga Wagga. But, yeah, he's no longer the editor, but maybe he's moved on to bigger and better things. I have no clue. But he was quite concerned about me at the time, but quietly, you know. And I didn't understand why. And the doctors that I was in touch with, brave doctors who were helping me out, they were very concerned about me. And I'm just like, why are they so concerned about me? You know, I didn't know. And that's where the plot thickens. They were going to do a story at Riverina Media, which is our local paper, you know, Riverina paper, which is we're the biggest inland city in New South Wales, Australia, for people who don't know. And then I get a call from the editor, and he was abusive. Like, we're not running your story. And I actually cried. I was such a mess at that point, where I was just like crying, because why is this editor so angry? Why does he hate me? You know, why does he hate me? My child's been poisoned. Why does this editor hate me?
And isn't it true that we always turn around and we self-reflect it back onto us because we don't understand what it is that we're not communicating? Not to cut you off, we're about a minute to break, not even. And I want to leave the audience there. Do you see the pain when you actually care about your children? And I mean, we care about our children. There's pain there. It's real because we are real, not zombies. Time to wake up, people. Lifting the Veil on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Welcome back to AmericanFreedomRadio.com. You're listening to Lifting the Veil. I should have let that song play a little bit more because it's really sexy. But anyway, we're not talking sexy today. AmericanFreedomRadio.com. We are live with Angela Forman. I did say American Freedom Radio, didn't I? I have to make sure that I'm saying these things right because I would just absolutely hate to mess it all up. Anyhow, we're talking, we left off at the break with Angela explaining how much pain she was in when the editor from the local newspaper called her to say, listen, we're not running your story, and basically made her feel like she was a raving lunatic. Hi, Angela.
Hi. Yeah, he absolutely did. And I felt like they all hate me and I don't know why. They've poisoned my child. But Bridget is now permanently, well, not permanently, because I'm working with people to reverse this. If she would have went to hospital, she would have died, and they would have said, oh, jeepers, a child died, you know, heart attack or whatever they call it. And it's happening. It's happening around the world, and people don't realise it while their child is developing cancer or their child has silent asthma and died, or why their child had a heart attack or whatever. And so that's not going to happen to my child. I took my power back. I took it back.
This is crazy. A child having a heart attack is crazy.
Yeah, it happens. I've got friends who are doctors, and they tell me about different things where a child just passes away. You never hear about it in the media. And people don't realise that we're being bombarded with chemicals, but it's happening in our schools. It's happening so much, and it's still happening. But, getting back to this Riverina Media guy, he's the head of Riverina Media. And it just happened that a local member our local member for the Riverina helped me out because my children I've taken them out of school, and they're being distance ed, my two youngest, because they have a sensitivity to formaldehyde, which everyone has. But after he went up to the education department and said, this woman, leave her alone, get her children in distance ed, and he really stood up for me. And a week later, there was all over the papers, they called him Daryl Do Nothing. And this is a good politician, which, can not very often say. He wanted to make the Riverina schools chemical-free, which was probably pretty naive. And, I probably shouldn't be saying all this on air, but I might as well. But I thought he was either naive or corrupt, at the time when he was saying this to me. So I decided to ring up the local paper after they treated me horrendously a year ago and just have a chat to a reporter and say how disgusted I was with the story. And so I did that, and the woman that I spoke to, she was a reporter, and she said, you need to talk to my boss, because she started asking me questions about why I thought that he was good and all this sort of stuff, and what did he do for me, and we got into the story about my daughter and about her chemical poisoning, and she just said, you need to speak to our boss, and I said, no, I don't want to speak to him, he doesn't like me. She's like, of course, he does. Of course he'd love to hear this story. We need to run this story. And I just said, no. And it took quite a while for her to convince me to talk to him. And he got on the phone, and do you know what he said, Cari? He said, you? And I can't even say it in the horrible way he said it. It was so horrible because I'd probably shock the listeners. It'd be terrible.
I'm just gonna go there and say, think of J. Jameson on Spider-Man, getting really angry all at once because she's done the voice for me before.
Well, I'll do it. He said, "You," and I'm just like, me. And I just had this feeling where I had to hang on to the phone, where I was going to listen. And he started raving about there's no such thing as chemical sensitivity. Blah, blah, blah. And I said, so do you mean that poisons don't make people sick? And he said, and he started raving about all the nanny state and how corrupt it all is and, and about how the sun's good for you. And he started raving it. It went on for about 15 minutes. And I just sat there and I just listened to him scream at me. And I can laugh at it now because it's if you didn't laugh, you'd cry. So I just sat there and I listened and I just said about halfway through his rant, about 15 minutes in, I said, can you just listen to me for a minute? And he stopped. And I said, everything you said about the sun and everything else he said, I went through a list of things. I agree with that. That's what I teach people. That's what I tell people who've got eczema and psoriasis to get better. And he stopped. And he said, and he started caring about 2 of your kids. Have both got chemical sensitivities? And I said, yeah. And he said, ha. And I said, well, I've got 5 children. My first 3 went through school fine. And he stopped again. And he said, they rang me. This is what the head of Riverina Media said to me. He said, they rang me. Who's the they? That's what I want to know. He said, they rang me. They told me you had no evidence. And I said, look, I've got all the paperwork. I've got the MSDSs, the safety data sheets for people who don't know what MSDSs are, which apparently I didn't know before either, on chemicals. I said, I've got the medical information, I've got photographic evidence, I've got doctors' evidence. And he said, they told me you had nothing. They actually rang him after the story went public on the news and told him not to run the story.
And this is nothing new to any of us. We all know that there's, so many corporations that are taking care of a very small or a very large amount of newspapers and any other media outlet that they can get their hands on. We all know this. But the thing is that when you're thinking about your children, you're not thinking that this is the way that it's being handled. And unfortunately, yes, okay, those of us that have been really engrossed in all of this, yes, we get it. But when you're first reaching that conclusion that, oh my goodness, I've just, put my kids into school, and you've got the chemical, you've got the indoctrination of turning them into good little worker bees for the system. You've got the food that they're eating. We have to reclaim our children on so many different levels. It's no wonder I have the odd breakdown and cry for an entire day. We're up against incredible odds, people.
Well, if I didn't, if I didn't know what I knew now, I know that Bridget would have passed away because they would have put her in a hospital, and they would have mopped the floors because she was at a point where now, if she's around any chemicals, she'll collapse. It's like an anaphylactic response. Her body says, "I've had enough," and they poisoned her. I can't sue them because they are the corporate government. I can't do anything about it. The media won't tell the parents. Parents are running around wondering why their children are so ill. I can tell them why they're so ill. But
it's just all so corrupt. And I just went in there. This is the core of it. Is I went in there thinking that these are good people, the education department, that they care about our children, and they're great teachers, but the people in power above them. I've been to the minister. I've spoken to the minister's, I actually haven't spoken to him personally, the education minister, but I've spoken to the people below him, whether or not he doesn't hear it, or I don't know. But they knew about these chemicals. They did the whole thing. They tested it. And I trusted them. I thought that they would actually do something and protect other children and just bring in a simple law that you can't use poisonous chemicals, because there's plenty of alternatives out there, which Bridget's school was actually made chemical-free, and they used an alternative cleaner which is working fantastic. It costs a fraction of what the other people are using. And a simple law, apparently, to make schools chemical-free, they refused to pass it. At first I thought it was laziness. Now I think it's a little bit more sinister.
Well, how can you indoctrinate and make the brain mushy enough so that they can tell them to do whatever they want them to do without lots of chemicals? Because, they're putting it into the GMO, and they're putting it into your foods, and they're putting it into the chemicals, and they're putting it into the televisions. And between everything, where's the reprieve? And something that another listener had asked me, here we are, two women. Now, of course, standing strong as, say, and not to give myself this credit, so please don't take it this way as being an ego thing, as a clan mother, standing tall, tribally, taking back our children because it's our responsibility. It's also the responsibility of the fathers. There are fathers out there that are standing up for their children constantly every day. And to you, I say, Creator bless you. And all of the people that are atheists can just deal with me for a minute. I am so grateful that for the fathers that stand up and do right by their children, do right by their women, and stand strong as protectors. This is what the world needs more of. Yeah, in my situation, I am the mother and the father. I'm a single parent, so, yes, you are. And that's the thing. You're picking up slack for both sides. Yeah, well, something that people might think is a bit out there, and, I'm an ex-Jehovah's Witness, like Santos, which, I've mentioned on Vinny's show. And what it does is it makes you, you're a truth seeker, thank goodness. So there's a reason why I was stuck in that religion. Thank goodness I know it. But, definitely. But just before, 2 days before Vinny contacted me to go on his show, I got down on my hands and knees because I knew the education department was circling around me, and I knew that what they have in Australia, it's called DOCS. Here I am feeding my children organic food, repairing my daughter rather than letting her get sick and giving her a genetic disease or whatever they want to give these children. I got down on my hands and knees because I just felt something was wrong. And the education department gave me such a hard time telling me to prove it all over again after I've spent thousands of dollars to prove that my daughter was not, poisoned by these chemicals. God, it says it on the MSDSs. I just kept saying to them, look at the MSDSs. And they just were so sick. They just sat there and laughed at me. The head of the education department here in Wagga, he laughed at me. He just said, prove it. You'd have to have really deep pockets, Angela. It really comes down to the age-old, first they ridicule you, then they, this is the thing. If they make fun of you, you're going to shut up. If they embarrass you, you're not going to say anything. Yeah, well, for a time, and you're a strong woman, though. You don't just shut up easily. You're like me. We're like each other. Yeah. So I got down on my hands and knees one night, and, I don't pray to anything in particular. I pray to our Creator. Whether he be an atheist, whatever, I pray to this is what I do. I pray to my Creator, the ones who are looking after me. Because I really don't know. I'm humble enough to know, after being indoctrinated by the Jehovah's Witnesses as a child. But I really don't know. It could be people walking amongst us. Could be our Creator. Maybe he's not there. Maybe it's our forefathers. Maybe it's my grandfather. I don't know who's there for me. So I'm very humble and I pray to all of them. And I said it out loud and I got down on my hands and knees and I said, use me to do something. But please, all I ask in return is to protect my children. And do you know what? The next day, I got a call from our local member for Riverina at 6 p.m. and he said, I've gone up to the education department and I have told them to give your children distance education, basically to get off your back.
And I got an invitation from Vinnie Eastwood to go on his show. It's just out of the blue. But I will stick to that promise to try and bring that information to people and to try and do something for this planet, because if that's my promise, and I know that's how I'll protect my children.
For
Does
sure.
that sound out there? Or
No, it's exactly the same thing as I've done, basically. When I started getting into the whole sovereignty issue, I dropped to my knees in the same way and said, bring me the truth. And wow. You know, you really have to be careful what you ask for sometimes. I'm in no regret at all whatsoever. But you really do have to watch the way that you word things. I asked for something and I got exactly what I wanted. Now, just so you know as well, excuse me, I have a terrible throat tickle today. Mitch Sandel, who is Vinnie Eastwood's producer, he has 4 kids, and his youngest daughter is disabled, and he stands up for that girl every day. That's a true parent. Angela, a true parent, stands up for her children every day. I know so many parents that are like this. And, I mean, Mitch is in the background on air right now, just listening. And he is inspired by us 2 women sitting here and talking about this. He is an inspiration and strength to both of us. We need to all be talking about this. This is what we all need to be talking about. We need to really be discussing the fact that, you know what? These are our children. Regardless of whatever contracts that we need to finagle ourselves out of to take them back, they are our responsibility.
They are, and you know what? The teachers, this is what I think about, is the horrendous way that I was treated by the principal. And, you know, she could deny that, but at first she was looking down on me, just saying, your child, you know, accusing me of not feeding my child proper food and all sorts of stuff, and looking down on me. And I got to the point, you know, I'd go and see her and I'd shake like a leaf, literally. I'd go into the office and I was so scared of her. And then one day I stood up and I said, you are a principal, and I don't tell you how to be a principal, but my expertise is chemicals and removing chemicals and toxins from people's lives. So don't tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. And I said to her, you're the one who said to me to keep my child in school, and then she had a full chemical collapse. Do not tell me. I just got up and I just suddenly got the strength to say, and I just looked at her and I saw her as just an idiot. And I'm sorry.
It's okay. You know what? It's okay. I've learned that, you know, we get angry and we say these things. It's not necessarily that she's an idiot. She's ignorant. We've all had that level of ignorance at some time, you know, so it's hard to be forgiving.
And that's standing up to me.
She lost her ignorance.
Yeah, she did, because that was that day where maybe it was a lightning bolt moment, you know, but she actually listened to me, and I just said, I know what I'm talking about.
Of course you do.
Changed it. Yep.
Of course you do. And with that, we'll be back on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. You're listening to Lifting the Veil with Cari-Lee. And we're joined by Angela Forman. Come back very soon. And welcome back to AmericanFreedomRadio.com. This is Lifting the Veil. I'm your host, Cari-Lee, and today we are joined by Angela Forman, owner of the Gourmet Soap Kitchen. And today she's joining me to talk about taking back our children. Now, unfortunately, I know it's a little daunting listening to the first hour. You're listening to a lot of uncomfortable tales and sadness, but to get to what we did next, we kind of have to go through that journey. So we're just going to talk a little bit with Angela about, you know, how she took her daughter out of the system and what happened next. Angela, if you want to continue from where you left off with your daughter, by all means, please do.
Okay, so my original thought, and we'll touch briefly on that and then give people solutions, is that I fought for over a year to keep her in school, and the chemicals were actually removed, and all parents have to do is actually go to the school and say, what are you using? I really want people to go down to their schools and say, can I please have the MSDSs from the cleaning chemicals that you're using?
Okay,
and
get them
and research them.
That is the very first solution. Parents, please be proactive. Please go into the school and see exactly what it is your children are surrounded by. What are the chemicals that they're using? What are the ingredients in the food that they're eating at lunchtime? These are things that you should want to know. Okay, go ahead.
And it's actually the law says that they have to give you these MSDSs. So go down and get them.
Which means they can't say no. They can't say no to you. They cannot look at you and say, no, you cannot have this. They have no choice but to give it to you.
No, so you can be organic at home and you send your children off to school, they're being poisoned. That's not right. So you can just go down to the school, be proactive and protect your children. And I tell people this and they worry, in the shop because they come in and usually, quite often I'll find out when did this start happening, with the different problems. And quite often it's their daycare centre or it's their school, particularly the public schools. And I'll say, well, go and get the MSDSs. And do you know what? Most of them are too frightened to talk to the secretary. It's ridiculous. Go down and talk to the secretary. She's not something scary. She might present as something scary, or you're worried about what she might think of you. Don't worry about what she thinks of you. Think about your children.
Isn't that crazy that so many people will sit back and be like, I'm so worried about what somebody's going to, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. Okay, so you'd rather your child suffer than to give any remedy to make sure that there is no suffering. Not that there shouldn't be any suffering in life, because that's where we find out who we are in the end of it all anyway. The point being, I can't stress this enough. You gave birth to your children. You conceived your children. You had them not for somebody else to look after. Our society is twisted. This is why the need for take your children back from the system seemed like such an important show to do. I'm sorry, Angela, continue.
So I fought for over a year to keep my child in school, and they did make it chemical free. And then coming last term in Australia, when winter started, something was different. They actually removed the unflue gas heating, which is probably banned in the US and Canada. I'm pretty sure it's banned in most of the world, but it's basically formaldehyde being pumped out into the classroom. They removed it from my children's classrooms because I kicked up a big stink. And I wasn't going to have it. I wasn't going to have my children having asthma. And, my children don't have asthma. They have, reactions to chemicals, which everyone's giving a name to things. And the question is, why? Why does your child have asthma? Why does your child have a chemical sensitivity? Why is your child sick? So, that's my industry. So I went down and I kicked up a big stink and they didn't like me. Well, bad luck. I'm protecting my children. But anyway, coming back to this term, my daughter did long jump. She's 9 and she was 9 at this stage. And she had bruised feet. And I just thought they were bruised feet. And it went on for 6 weeks, so she'd wake up in the morning crying because her feet were hurting her so badly. She was in agony. It turned out she had frostbite. Do you want to know how she had it, Cari? Even though it's not, you're in Canada, it's cold.
I was going to say, you're in Australia. How do you get frostbite in Australia?
Well, it gets cold, but not that cold. It never snows in Wagga Wagga, but it was cool. So what happened was my daughter they've got these dead edges around the long jump pit. And I went down and took photos afterwards because I've kept a diary and a photographic diary after advice, which I thought was ridiculous, but I did it because a good doctor of mine said, please do it. 6 weeks later, I found out she has frostbite. And a doctor friend of mine, he said that she got it from walking on Roundup, which was around, because she's so sensitive now to chemicals, which was around the long jump pit, and she would have walked on it barefoot. And all her blood vessels shrank, basically, and she had no circulation in her feet. Who would have thought that the child goes to school, so she's pretty rare, he's never seen that before. So at this point, I just decided, and I went to the school, and they said, no, we're not using any chemicals, we're not using any Roundup, we're not using anything. I could see it was used, and I just decided, that's it, I'm taking my children out of school. I do not trust these people anymore. I do not trust them. She started getting sick, and I knew that there was something introduced over the school holidays period, and I just said no more.
Well done.
I do not. This is my responsibility, just like you said. It's my responsibility, and I'm going to do this. And, now I know people who can help me, but they're not going to have my children anymore, not for another day.
It's an awful feeling to feel hopeless. I can remember my daughter being in school, and my personal experience was not appreciating the way that they treated the children. You have this big 6'5" man that's a grade 2 teacher yelling at a student in the middle of the hallway while all these students are around, you're degrading that child. That is, as far as I'm concerned, and a lot of other people, that is incredibly emotionally abusive. You don't do that to a child. In grade 1, my daughter had switched schools, and this teacher, this 6'5" Neanderthal, ended up looking at her because she was into fibbing. Switching schools, new friends, the whole nine yards is very, very difficult. But he turned around in front of the entire class and said, "You're a liar. I'll never believe you." And so the students ended up turning around and lying and making it her fault all the time. So much so that his wife, who was a substitute teacher for his class one day, pulled my husband aside to say, "Do you realize that this is going on?" And apparently that husband and wife couple didn't have many conversations at home at the dinner table, or else she would have never said that. Because that's when it was found out. When we went to the school to try and make something happen with it, he denied it even happening. And I had to get other children to act as witnesses to say that it did. That's how disgusting the teachers, some of these teachers can be. They don't take responsibility for themselves. They don't go in there for the child. They go in for the pets that listen well and they don't have to worry about. And the ones that are creative thinkers, they don't want to deal with. The ones that think for themselves, they don't want to deal with because they're a hassle. There was last two Remembrance Days ago, my daughter was shunned. No, it wasn't. It wasn't that. It was Thanksgiving. She was shunned and sent to the office because the teacher said, we should be thankful for what the natives gave us. And my daughter said, yeah, kind of like the way they should be thankful for the smallpox we gave them. She was sent to the office for that. It's the truth, but she was sent to the office. Now, these are very small examples of how they continuously tried to beat down my girl. Continually tried to beat down my girl. I took her, I had no choice but to take her out. I couldn't let the abuse go on anymore.
Well, you did the right thing, and what the education department, before I got down on my hands and knees and prayed to whoever I was saying, they were saying to me, what about your children's development? What about their social skills? The children are half nuts at her school. Weeks in, there were children screaming, yelling, and I look at these children thinking, this isn't the socialisation I want my child around.
Really, though? Honestly, I was I was appalled by the kids at school. I couldn't believe how... I don't remember. Go down and look at them.
Go down and have a look and listen to what these children are saying. This is not the socialisation that you want your child involved with.
No, definitely not. It's creating more disease for an even sicker society than we already have. So solutions. Take your kids out of school. Learn to teach them yourself. You can do this. There are resources everywhere. You just have to go looking for them. You can teach them the trivium. You can if you're not into Christianity, take whatever Christian aspect of it that you don't like out of it and still teach them the quadrivium. Teach them to think critically. There's absolutely no reason why they can't learn these things from you. It's not important to make six figures. It is important to love your kids. It is important to show them love. It is important that they see a strong family unit where you love each other, not where you go and buy X amount of thousands of dollars of Christmas presents for them, but where you actually care and you actually show them that you're a part of their lives. I can remember my grandparents raised me, and I have no regrets with that because I learned some fantastic things from them. But all I wanted when I was a child, the only thing I wanted was my parents. That was it. I didn't want anything else. I wanted to have them in my life as much as possible because they were my parents. I looked up to them. I loved them. Of course, they were flawed. We all are. It doesn't matter. My grandparents raised their kids. It was my parents' job to raise me, just like it's my job to raise my children. This is why my children have never been in daycare. This is why my children are no longer in school. I remember taking my son out of school. Oh, we'll get back to it after the break. In the next hour, we're talking solutions. It's very hard being a mother and not getting all this off your chest. www.americatalks.ca. AmericanFreedomRadio.com. This is Lifting the Veil. I am your host, Cari-Lee. And before the break, we were speaking with Angela Forman about taking our children back from the system, a little bit about our stories. And we're going to talk about solutions. I want to start this one off, this section of the show, by telling you a little story. My editor, as you all know, if you've been listening, Justin, he said, you got to tell him about the compromise you made for Halloween. This is fun. What ended up happening was last year, my daughter, she was in a bit of trouble. She wasn't allowed to go out. I was struggling with it anyway. I haven't, for the last few years, I haven't wanted them to go. My son was sick, so last year they didn't go. This year I looked at them and I said, you know what? I'll give you $20 a piece to go into the organic shop and buy whatever candy and chocolate that you want. And their eyes nearly popped out of their heads. And I said, and after the actual Halloween time and everything goes discount, as long as it's a tasteful costume that is not making fun of anybody's culture, you can have costume. I'll buy you a couple costumes. Daddy and I'll buy you a couple costumes, and you can play with them all year round. And these children, my beautiful babies, didn't argue with me in the slightest. I said to my daughter, I don't want you participating in the ritual which is disgracing our ancestors. And that's the way I look at it. If you don't look at it that way, it's okay. I don't need you to judge me, and I don't judge you. But this is what's right for me and my family. We don't want to participate in the ritual that is disrespecting our ancestors. Our genetic inheritance is very important in my mind. What we get from our ancestors, what we're leaving behind for those yet to come, is something that we really have to take more seriously. And I have a deep respect for my genetic inheritance. So running around dressed like a bunch of cultures, making fun of them 9 times out of 10 is really not a way that I finally understand. I want to be spending the time. I don't want my children being vamped. I don't want their energy being taken for something mindless. Now, not only this, and Angela and I were talking about this on the break, and she said, I decided that this year too. This lovely woman and I, we are completely in sync together. Now, we've also made another decision for the whole winter celebration idea. Last year, we had done solstice and Yule, 12 days of Yule, and we realized we're not sure about that either. We don't know what to do. How do we do this? So what we've decided this year in the group, a community that we are living in and near and around, we're going to go out to where we like to spend our weekends together as a community. We're going to skate on the lake. We're going to create soaps and all kinds of goodies that are homemade, organite pieces, soap, shampoos, laundry detergent, all these things, play board games, all kinds of winter things, making hot chocolate together as a family, as a community, so that we can, at the end of it, instead of taking home all these useless presents that nobody really wanted in the first place, money wasted, we've done something, we have memories, and we're taking away from the system at the exact same time. We really, really, really are excited for this. It's something that is worth doing, is a change worth making, and there's no guilt. My kids are like, yeah, I want to do that. Who wants one day of crazy? So that all of your energy gets sucked into the global elite's pyramid of doom. I just don't want to play in that energy. So I withdraw. I don't know. What do you think about that, Angela?
It sounds incredible, and I could certainly help you out with the soap recipe. As you know. But, yeah.
Thank goodness, because we're going to need it.
Most people after Christmas Day, they're just exhausted. And it doesn't turn out to be, a great day at all. And I really don't like these, people go down to these department stores and they get you these gifts. And I've always been very big on getting people things they need. I don't understand people who go around shopping and give you rubbish that you don't want. It makes no sense. And that's not really giving. That's just a pretty package by the global elites. Here's your day this is your one day where you're a slave for the rest of the year. Here's your package. You can have a great day today because the rest of your life sucks. That's my take on it.
It just seems so terrible. We don't celebrate life enough. We have to celebrate these ridiculous holidays of Easter and Christmas and Thanksgiving and yada 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 yada. And we all kind of get that that's not what we're here for.
I so want to come over to Canada and go ice skating with you because I'm actually a pretty good ice skater.
Oh,
and make soap with you. I so want to come to your place for Christmas, but I can't afford it.
Oh, this is something we have to manifest. This is something that we absolutely have to. I've already been to Australia. It was way back in 1998, and I can't believe I missed all these beautiful people that I'm friends with now. Everything for a reason. Anybody who's coming up to Canada and going skating with us, you're more than welcome. And that is serious. If I see 1,000 people at the skating rink this year, I'm going to laugh. I'm just going to be tickled pink. But that being said, this is something that's very true. Why do we feel the need to do these celebrations? They're ingrained in us. It's something that we don't need to be doing. Why do we feel like sitting our children in front of a television? It's something that's been ingrained into us. It's something that people have been doing for so long. This is another way of taking your children back. This is something that we need to be talking about. It's the solutions now. You don't sit your child in front of a television as its babysitter. You go out and you do things with your children.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you how I got my children out of the system. It's probably a bit different in Australia. I could homeschool them, which, I'm a teacher, complete teacher. But my children, the two youngest, have a chemical sensitivity to formaldehyde. The Education Department's own website says that the formaldehyde's already so high, but formaldehyde levels are way above what's safe for humans, which is no wonder why my children were getting sick. And my youngest actually started getting depression. That's how it manifests in him. So I'm lucky enough to get that. I actually get distance education for my children, in my case. And they deserve it because they cannot be, and they call it allergy to large building syndrome or something stupid, But they really do have that. They've got the sensitivity. But I was sitting at an organic cafe the other day, waiting because my pack's just arrived with my children's distance education, and they're going to do online. They've got a teacher which they'll be able to speak to once a week, and they do their work, and I help them with it, But I was sitting at our local organic cafe, and we're eating this beautiful lunch, but waiting for the lunch, they're reading National Geographics and they're learning, and I'm teaching my own children, and it just hit me that I can teach my own children things, amazing things. Why on earth did I think previously that I had to send them off to this system? And the staff at this cafe said, what amazing children I have, because they've calmed down. They're not in this system anymore, and they've become real people.
My button was stuck. The thing is that I go out with my kids and everybody says, oh, why aren't you in school, right? And it's like, well, because they're homeschooled. And usually I get the same response of, your children are absolutely well behaved and so bright and this, and that, and the other. And there's times where I really do, and I'm not going to lie to anybody, I doubt myself. I doubt my ability to teach my children properly. I doubt, and I shouldn't, but I do, because I get worried that I'm not giving them as much, but I'm giving them more than they've ever had. They're happier, more well-adjusted than they were when they were in school. So I really don't have any regrets. But at the same time, I need other mothers and fathers to understand that it's okay. You are allowed to feel like you're not the best, because it's just been ingrained in us that we have to be so much better than we are. We're not good enough. You are good enough. If you are good enough to birth that child, you are good enough to raise it.
Absolutely. And once you take that power back, they're never getting my children again. They're just not, because I've seen the difference. But before I started, teaching my children from home, children would come into my shop with soap kitchen, gourmet soap kitchen in Wagga, and I could spot a homeschool kid a mile away, because they would come up to me, ask me questions. They were polite. They're so different. And I should have known that. I should have thought, well, I pulled my kids out of school, but it was an easy babysitting thing for me at the time. To be honest with you, being a single parent running a business, I didn't really think of it that selfishly, but it's a lot easier to just send them off to school. It is.
Oh, honey, I don't know how you do it. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't have a business. I mean, yes, I make organite. I do this, and that, but I really literally fly by the seat of my pants. You're running a business and you have 5 children, and to me, that makes you a hero in my eyes. I don't put you on a pedestal. I do walk beside you, but the strength in that is incredible.
Well, I have my moments. I have my days where my nerves get really bad, because I have so much on my plate, and that's something I'm working on now. Actually, Mitch Centel, getting producers, is going to help me with that, apparently. But,
excellent.
And I think he's, from what I've seen, he knows what he's talking about. But we work together as a family. But 2 of my children, one's 22, so he's grown up. He's left home. I hardly ever see him. But I've got my eldest daughter who works with me. She's my apprentice in the shop. She's 19. And my 17-year-old son, he helps. So we all work together. We've all got our jobs. So we all work together to make the household work. And it's very calm. There's no arguments in our house. I came out of a household where, a Jehovah's Witness household. My father's a Catholic. My mother's a Jehovah's Witness. There was nothing but arguments. Messed up.
That's like
I
double whammy. Complete double whammy, though. You've got the Jehovah's Witness mom and the Roman Catholic dad. I'm so sorry.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't really active. My father's Irish, but what it taught me was I did not want to have that. I was determined to turn my life around. That my children were not going to be in the turmoil. Like, oh my goodness, if you knew the amount of fights that went on in my family. And I was not going to have a household where there was fighting and arguments. And so I have a very special method in making the house very peaceful, because I refused to go through another 20 years of tension. I might have 5 children, but we all work together and it's a team, and it's amazing.
That's incredible, and that's something that I can say honestly I'm still working on. We argue in this house. I don't like it, but it happens. But like I said, it's something that we're working on. It's like we're reinventing ourselves as a family because we didn't start out this way. Where we are is not where we were. We started off completely brainwashed. I can't even lie about it in the slightest bit. Right now, a friend of ours sent us a link, and if anybody's interested, the name of it is Nonviolent Communication, San Francisco Lecture Workshop with Marshall Rosenberg, cnvc.org, and you can look that up on YouTube. I'm sitting down and watching all 3 hours tonight because I'm a work in progress. We are works of progress, and we need all the help that we can get to get to where we are. We're in this together. We're in service to each other, for each other, to make each other better. This is how we make the world a better place. So, if anybody else is like me and mine and you don't always communicate the best, then take the time to help yourself. Others will present themselves when they need to. Angela, you presented yourself exactly when I needed you to. And my friend said, here, nonviolent communication doesn't mean that, there's violent communication. No, but it's not nice all the time. So how do we get past that? Well, let's learn together. It's something that everybody has to look at, is that this is something that you have to do together and take responsibility of your actions always.
Well, this is probably getting off the topic, but do you want to know my method with my children, how I taught them not to argue? It's a really good method.
How's that?
Well, okay, from my first child, because I had the 3 together and then I had the 2 later on. I'm 42. I started off young because Jehovah's Witnesses, if you have sex, you've got to get married straight away. I was 19.
Yeah.
And you're so bored that you have 3 children. What I'd say to my children, and they all know it, and they're all experiencing it, and because of that, they're all best friends. What I say is, if one child does one thing, you come and set something wrong to one child, come and see me, because, I'm the negotiator. But if you retaliate, then you're the one that's going to get the punishment, not the one who originally did the wrong thing. It works a treat. I tell you, Carrie.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so what happens is one child might hit one, right? If the other one hits back or does something, say one does something like, what kids do to each other. Mm-hmm. And say if the other one retaliates by hitting the other one or something like that. If the one retaliates, well, the person who did the original bad thing gets the has already had their punishment. So the one who retaliated has to say, well, you're going to get the punishment. They get the punishment. But what they've learned is don't retaliate, let's negotiate.
Well, no, definitely. Not only that.
But what happens if you don't do that is that one will retaliate, and then it becomes an ongoing, I'm going to get you back for that.
Back and
forth, and it becomes a really thick situation. So at the end of the day, my children will be picked off with me, but that's okay, I don't mind. You know what I mean? They'll, at times, I've sat there and thought,
we get used to that.
I'm the bad one, but at least they're best friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the good thing too is to understand that you, just because somebody does something doesn't mean you have to react to it. Why are you reacting to what the other person is doing? That's something that as adults that we need to be doing more of. Why am I reacting to what you're doing? Is it whatever you're doing shouldn't affect me? Why am I allowing it to?
And I need to listen to more of my advice.
Yes, I know. I'm the same way. That's why I mentioned it.
I taught my children to be these grounded, amazing people. I wish I was quite as grounded, and wasn't so affected. But, I'm just passing on something that I know and just trying to help my children do something that I was never taught as a child. I don't know where it came from. But
you're an air sign. There's no grounding for you.
Definitely not.
No. It's funny. We understand that in order to help our children, we kind of have to, at some point, become childlike ourselves.
I think so.
It's just the way that it's going, isn't it?
Take a bit of our own advice.
All right. We'll be back on AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Welcome back to AmericanFreedomRadio.com. This is Lifting the Veil. I'm your host, Cari-Lee, and I'm here once again with Angela Forman, and we're talking about taking back our children. Taking back our children is it's a huge show, honestly. It should be more than what we're able to give it right now in this 2 hours. It's everything from taking them out of the school system to understanding what the school system is actually doing to them while they're there. A lot of people are in denial about that. Oh, no, they're socializing. They're getting good educations. No, they're not. They're getting lied to. They're getting false history. They're getting fed poisons. There's poisons all around them, and they're being taught to not think critically, not think for themselves, and be good little worker bees because that's the only way you're going to get an A+ and a nice hero cookie for your shirt. That is not doing anything good for our kids. We are having our children in hospitals. We are having them filled with mercuries and poisons and being told that this is an immunization that's going to make their lives better. It's not. It's something that's giving our children autism. It's something that's giving our children brain disorders, malfunctions in their bodies and their digestive systems. The list goes on and on and on. We sit our children in front of television sets and we think that that's okay. We give birth to them and go right into work because we have to have a career to have an identity. I don't have a career. My identity is fine. My name is Cari-Lee. I have 2 children. I have a husband. I have 2 dogs and a cat. I am working at making this world a better place from inside myself out. That is my identity. I raise my children. My husband raises our children. We work together. This is my identity. This is who I am. And I don't need much more than that. Well, maybe a little because I do this radio thing and I really like it. And you guys all seem to enjoy it. So there's part of my identity too. But it's just more furthering my own truth. Because that's what I promised myself and Creator that I would do. That's my shtick. That's my thing. I'm out here being whatever truth I can be. Even if that means I have to live a lie for a little while to get it through my head that it's a lie and I have to do the truthful thing, that's how it works. So that's my identity. I don't need to go and make six figures and drive a freaking Yukon or whatever the heck the new car of the year is. I have no idea because I don't pay attention. I don't watch news. I don't know what's trendy anymore. I know what I like. I know what makes me happy. And I'm telling you right now, if the entire world is doing it, you can guarantee I'm not. I don't read 50 Shades of Grey. Okay, my rant's over. Angela, my dear, let's talk about all the different things that you've changed in your life since you've woken up. I woke up. I'm talking good English. No, but let's talk about all the things that you've changed in your life since you've woken up and the different things that you've implemented into your children's lives, your daily routine. How did you take your children back? Like, we already know about the school, but let's go farther.
Okay, well, I was woken up originally by a brave doctor who taught me to save my first child's life. And then I also had a friend of mine named John, there's thousands of Johns, so I won't name him because he might get in trouble, who came into my shop one day and just said to me.
One second. Lifting the veil is a safe place. Okay, continue.
Who opened my eyes up even more to what's going on about vaccination. Sadly, I've vaccinated all my children. If I only knew. But I just, after my child was poisoned and seeing what was going on and watching the criminality within the education department and how at first thinking that it was just they were being lazy with their jobs as to why they weren't removing these chemicals from other schools, and then realising how it ties in with the medical industry and all this sort of stuff. I don't know. What was the question? But basically I just decided that I am no longer going to be part of this system. And I've left the system. And yes, I do work, but I don't make any money. I've got a shop, but I use it to try and help people. And I'm ethical. And being ethical in this world today doesn't really make you much money. But I also make my children a part of the business. And I, that I'm not going to trust the system anymore to take care of my children.
It's silly that we ever did, but we've never known anything else, right? Let's talk about your soap shop. Let's talk about your soap shop, and let's talk about what you're doing there. Let's talk about your knowledge, that maybe some things that the listeners don't know about soaps.
Okay, well, there's soaps and there's soaps. Anyone who says it's a soap-free wash, stay the hell away from it. That's my first advice. Because natural soap is so good for you. It's just oils turned, and I've sent you some that should arrive early next week. How I started doing this was my first child had several collapsed lungs and was very ill. And, he started around his vaccination time, funny that. And all these children at 9 weeks were getting bronchiolitis. And it continued for several years, and he was in and out of hospital and all this sort of stuff. And I went to a doctor, and he said to me that I can give you pills or I can teach you to save his life. And he did. And I can't mention who he is because he's working under the radar.
And that's fine.
He's helping lots of people. And I would have loved to have got him on the show, but I can see why, and we did actually discuss it. But no, in his situation, it's not a good idea.
No, but it's brilliant that even if you can't go and tell the entire world through the internet, your word is still going to travel.
Well, he affected my life like you wouldn't believe. My son is now 6'7" and healthy as a horse, muscular and strong, no eczema, no psoriasis that he had. So this doctor got me started. I mean, he told me about the different things that we're all being exposed to, and we sat down there for well over an hour, and because most parents didn't want to listen, they just wanted the quick fix. The quick fix, give you the pills. And we recently reconnected, this doctor and I, and she actually cried when I spoke to him. This is a doctor who's so brave and humble enough to ring a regular person, because these doctors, and I won't say what field he's in or whatever, because I don't want to identify him in any means. And I told him about how well my son Wyatt is doing, and how he saved his life. And he did. And so I started seeking out natural things that were truly natural. and organic. And I found that they're either way too expensive or they weren't really what they were telling me they were going to do. So I started making things. And about 10 years ago, I started to make it a business. And I don't compromise on my ingredients. I don't use palm oil. I don't advertise that I don't test on animals, because why the hell would you if it's completely natural? I test on humans. You're going to be my tester next week, Carrie.
I can't wait. I have a package. Angela sent me a package of soaps that are just for me, and I can't wait because they'll probably take about 2 weeks to get here, I'm thinking, because it's from Australia. But I am going to take the most luxurious bath I have ever taken in a while, and this girl takes a lot of baths.
Make sure you throw some vitamin C in the bath.
Yeah, don't worry. Ever since you told me, I have been. Tell all the listeners why you put vitamin C in your bath.
Well, vitamin C is death-to-chlorine. And I've just made a soap called Death-to-Chlorine. I was going to call it Death-to-Chlorine. I haven't actually. I've called it vitamin C soap. Because I've got a shower filter, right? And I've recently got one. It's amazing because chlorine is so poisonous. I drink distilled water. And to get into a bath now, with all the chlorine and things like that, the fluoride aside, I can't stand the smell. So I don't know how I found out, but someone told me that vitamin C kills chlorine. I can't remember who it was. It's my research. I research all the time, Carrie. I'm single, and that's what I do, is I research 24/7. I've got nothing better to do.
I'm single, and all I do is I'm not, and all I do is research.
Do you know what I mean? I've got nothing better to do at night.
Yeah, we used to do our nails. Yeah. We don't do our nails anymore. We don't do our hair. We don't give ourselves manicures and pedicures. No, we research. This is our fun now. And it really is, though. Continue.
Yeah, all your people in relationships, while you're having fun, I'm researching. All you need is 2 grams of vitamin C in a bath. 2 grams. And what I did, I started using my cheap vitamin C, because I only have organic vitamins now, because seriously, people, be aware of normal vitamins. They can have a lot of toxins in them. And I found that out through my daughter Bridget's chemical sensitivity. I've given her some vitamins and she collapsed, There's certain artificial, natural sweeteners that are very toxic, and I won't mention the brand names, but so just be aware of that. But you just throw in a couple of vitamin C tablets, cheap ones, because forget about eating them, as far as I'm concerned. And the vitamin C, within a few minutes, to crush it to make it quicker. It's instant death to chlorine. It's amazing.
That's incredible. I had absolutely no idea about that until you had told me. Now, what about, let's talk about, I think that it's just best that we talk about what we've learned together. Angela has, so Carrie wasn't so good. I can't always be the perky radio host that you hear on Saturdays. And there are these moments where I am just so absolutely overwhelmed by everything, the truth. The hard truth coming at you, and it seems sometimes like it never lets up. But you know what? We have to stay positive. I get that. But there are those moments. I'm not going to lie and say it's all peaches and cream, because, see, there's this belief that you have to be all positive all the time. If you're light all the time, you're just letting the darkness in, because you don't have anything to block. And I'm sorry, but there has to be balance. You have to be able to understand, know exactly who and what your shadow is, in order to be okay with the light. I just see it as like this huge imbalance if you're just a big light and love and that's all there is. I don't get it. Now maybe that works.
Get that either.
It really doesn't make any sense to me. But that being said, I went to Angela and I was like, I don't understand what's wrong with me. I have this lymph node, and you all know from a couple weeks ago, I had this huge lymph node. It was just like my whole, like a golf ball on the side of my neck, and it was completely from stress. And even today, stress is very, very, very much apparent this year. And I've talked to a lot of people about it, and it's causing a lot of disease. So Angela started to explain to me, what was it? What did you call
it? Fatigue.
That's it. The adrenal fatigue. And I just went, oh my goodness. So I went to my local herbal shop, and he gave me all of this amazing stuff, from goji berries with cacao in it to a really special tea that's got a great blend of herbs in it. I don't have it with me, or I'd read them all off to you. Plus a medicine. What is the name of it, Angela, please?
Well, I went to, when Bridget was, when I was going to these doctors, these amazing, brave doctors that are very rare, who were under the radar, who were fighting the fight like you wouldn't believe, and they all get adrenal fatigue. And I didn't even know what it was, but I was in fighting for my daughter's life, fighting the education, fighting the system, and I was shaking like a leaf at times. No, I'm not. I couldn't help it. That's how it affects me. It affects people differently. Some people can't get out of bed. Some people cry. Just different. Some people get depression. I didn't have that. I had anxiety. And this doctor, a female doctor in this case, she looked at me and she said, while she was treating Bridget, while she was looking at her, she said, Angela, by the way, you've got adrenal fatigue. It's okay, because I had it, because she's a freedom fighter as well. And I said, what do you mean? She said, you've got adrenal fatigue. She said, but I had it too. We all have it. Everyone in our movement has it. And I just went, wow. And she said, see the girls at the desk, because being a doctor, she can't actually prescribe nutritional medicine. Of course. This doctor said to me that she wishes she was like me and that she wasn't a doctor, that she's doing her bit because legalities, she's able to help people, right? And so I went on this Dr. Wilson's formula, and amazing. It was a natural pituitary gland extract. I'd run out of pituitary extract, which a lot of troopers, a lot of people who are fighting the system, they end up, some people, I don't know how they do it, they just stay strong all the time, but I just fell apart. And
you know what I think it is? Just to cut in a little bit, I don't think it has anything to do with them being strong all the time. I think it's them being afraid to show anybody they fall apart. And personally, from where I stand, I'm a heck of a lot stronger if I'm showing my weakness.
Yeah. Well, you know those ones that kind of go, peace, with talk about peaceful, then I'm just not like that. I'm sorry, I don't get the mindset, and maybe that's real, but I don't see how it can possibly be real. I don't. But maybe someone needs to teach me that. I don't know.
I think it's incredibly important that when you feel something, you own it. So if you're sad, I think that it's very important that you don't hold it back. And that's something that I learned from my friend Matthew. Don't hold it in, because you have to get the crap out, basically. You need that purge. Get it out. Don't hold it in. It's not going to do you any good. It's baggage that you're holding on to. Why would you do that? Why would you weigh yourself down like that?
Yeah. But you've had those people around you, I presume, that just come in, and I just think, it sounds so fake. It's just like, or they haven't gone through anything. I don't know. I don't know. But how can
I can't judge because I don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't either. How do you understand that? How do you understand going through an incredible fight and then being so... you're telling me I have to be zen, I have to be this, I have to be... you cannot shake your fight. No, that's a physical reaction to what I'm experiencing. I'm sorry.
That's exactly it.
And it's the equivalent of your friend, Matt, who's my friend now as well, is my friend John. And I was telling him the other day on the weekend, and he just said, well, that's...
Okay, we're going to have to get back to that after the break.
Yeah.
So hold on to that thought. And my lovelies, we will return on AmericanFreedomRadio.com, Lifting the Veil, with Cari-Lee and Angela Forman. Welcome back to AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Lifting the Veil. I am your host, Cari-Lee, and once again, this is the final segment of the show entitled Taking Our Children Back with Angela Forman. Now, of course, I'm sure that we didn't give any information that people are like, wait, I'm getting answers of exactly how to do it. No, we're giving you a path to follow. We're giving you breadcrumbs. It's up to you to take responsibility, to do your own due diligence and be responsible for you and your children. Something that we were talking about in break that I think is very important is we've covered a lot of topics today, from school to vaccines to food to we've just touched about everything. But the one major thing that we can do to help take our children back is to be healthy ourselves. This is something that's incredibly important. We think, oh, well, okay, I'm guilty of this. I'm so worried about making sure everybody else is taken care of that I forget to take care of myself, and then where do I end up? I end up sick, or I end up not feeling well, or I feel like I make myself feel unappreciated. I make myself feel unappreciated because I don't take care of me sometimes. And that is something that we all have to stop. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to eat well. We have to take the vitamins that we need. We need to drink good water. We need to not brush our teeth with fluoride and not drink tap water and not go to the pharmacy for our medications and go back to the earth because she has everything that we have that we need to heal with. We need to start eating living food. And I really highly recommend 90% veggie and fruit and 10% meat. I'm not the type of person that wants to go, and yes, I just said wants to go full vegetarian. I actually enjoy meat. I know I can feel all you vegans and vegetarians bashing me with a noodle, but still, honestly, I think it's very important that I'm honest, and I'm okay eating chicken, grass-fed beef. That's just me, and it's okay if you don't like me for that. I don't care. And I don't think it's, I don't think anything of you eating all the vegetables that you do, even though my grass-fed beef is the one that's pooping on it. But that's, besides the point. I'm being silly. The thing that I'm looking at here is that we have to be healthy. And that's what Angela and I were talking about. The idea that it all starts with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we've both had moments where we can really fall apart fighting the system. They scare the hell out of you. And, we've got to learn how to heal ourselves so that we can actually fight this corrupt system.
And truly the best way to fight the corrupt system is to just kind of disengage. Disengage from it. Don't shop at Walmart. Buy used clothing. I have a meeting that I go to every week. I try to go to every week. I'm not so good at it. But anyway, I walk in there and the one girl, she looks at me, she says, I always love what you're wearing. And I said, that's awesome because you know where I get all my clothes? Either from a garbage bag that somebody in my friend group will be like, here, none of these fit me anymore, or I don't wear them anymore, or whatever the case is. Or it's from some thrift shop somewhere. Because I just don't like the idea of spending ridiculous amounts of money on things that I really don't need. I like used clothing. I don't know. It's the little things, though.
Well, there's plenty of formaldehyde in new clothes.
Yeah, well, formaldehyde and RFID chips and yada, 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 yada. We could go on and on and on. Yeah. What is your suggestion for parents that are working towards taking their children back, working towards being a better, healthy mind and spirit? What are your
suggestions? In my situation, we've touched on adrenal fatigue, which a lot of people go through, but it manifests itself in many different ways. I ended up taking a natural, you can either go on antidepressants, which is absolutely not recommended by me, or you can take a natural, you can take something for your adrenals, which there are many things, but I took Dr. Wilson's formula, which it actually comes, he actually takes an extract out of, he's a vegan, but he takes an extract out of cows that are raised in New Zealand. And no, I'm not getting any money for advertising his product, but he takes an extract from the pituitary gland, these animals that are organically raised. And that helped me get back on track. And recently, I've been under even more tremendous stress, with my children after the fight with the education department, etc., etc. And it's still ongoing. I started to shake again, that's how I manifest it, And I said to my friend John, and I admitted to him the other day, I'm battling with it again. And he said, well, that's just your ego talking. Who cares if you shake, Basically allowing ourselves to know that, yes, you have weaknesses, and then they don't become so, I don't know, do you get what I'm saying, Cari? Like, we can worry so much about it. We're just human beings. We're just fighting the fight and accepting that we can't be always 100% perfect in people's eyes.
We have to be forgiving to ourselves. It's incredibly important that we forgive ourselves for whatever shortcomings and go easy on ourselves, because I know myself, I'm so hard on me. You know, I want to...
The Geminis, that's why.
Constantly striving to be better than I was yesterday. And, you know, when those days where you're weak, it's hard. It's not easy. So you have to let up on yourself. You have to feed your soul, feed your mind, feed your heart. You have to feed yourself good things. Good things, lots of laughter. I can't stress laughter enough.
Yeah, I had a very good friend when I had really bad adrenal fatigue, and was sitting there in a cafe, and I just, you know, I was telling her about what I was suffering with, you know, and you know, I'm better now, like I really am, and she just said, "So you shake?" She said, "I'm wearing a blanket," which she's this gorgeous-looking young girl, a friend of mine. And, you know, literally she was, and I realised she was actually wearing a blanket. She turned it into, you know, like a sarong type thing. It was quite incredible. But that was her thoughts on it, is that that's your weakness. So what? I'm wearing a blanket today.
That's incredible. You know,
it shocked me that it was a mind-blowing moment.
It was just that easy.
Yeah. Just like, so what?
We tend to overthink things.
Yeah, exactly.
We really do.
That was her point. Just like, yeah, you're shaking, I'm wearing a blanket.
Something that was just sent to me from Mitch. For those of you that don't know, we've mentioned Mitch a couple times. We love Mitch. He is the producer of the Vinnie Eastwood Show. We love Mitch. Vinnie, too.
Is he listening?
I'm sure he is. I know that he is. He said that he was. But something that he said that I thought was important was, remember that life is not what happens to you. It's how you react to it. This is something that I'm learning. I still react badly to things. I still stamp my feet in a little temper tantrum. You know, you move forward afterwards.
Yeah, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I don't know. Or 1 step forward, 2 steps back some days, you know.
Definitely. I really hope that this show was something that the listeners appreciated, and understand that there are lots of places for you to go to make changes that you need to change. With my family, it started off with very small things. But something I'm going to say to the new parents out there, I knew I shouldn't have been signing the birth certificate. I did it anyway for the wrong reasons. I knew that I shouldn't have sent my daughter into kindergarten or junior kindergarten. I did it anyways. It's very important for me to share that with you. I make mistakes. I've made lots of mistakes. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to make about 5 more. So the thing is that when you realize you've made the mistake, do your best to get out of it in a way that is going to leave you living honorable, that is going to leave your children in a safe environment, and understand that it takes a lot more than meeting the teacher to get what's going on inside the school that your child is in. I think that's something that's very important to know. Any last words, Angela? I'd like you to let the listeners know where they can find you. So give me all your websites and all your stuff, and everybody go check out Angela.
Okay, well, my website's www.gourmetsoapkitchen.com. I'm in Australia and make about 140 different things for people, but basically I spend most of my day teaching people, you know, I fix psoriasis with my ointments and eczema and all that sort of stuff, but I spend most of my day teaching people how to not have it, which gives me less money, but damn, it feels good. That's awesome. What I do. That's what I do, and that's my choice. And I tell them in the shop, but I know they'll come back for my service, because wait till you try it. They're damn good. But I'm not there for money. I'm there to try and stop people from, my eldest son, to try and teach parents and other people what's giving them eczema and psoriasis. And that's honestly, that makes me feel so good. I might not come home with a paycheck, but I feel so good at the end of the day when I get someone come back in and say, my child's no longer got the problem, you know.
And that really is the best paycheck at the end of the day, isn't it?
That is. I don't know how people go to work and, like, say if they're working for the big pharma, if anyone's listening that's working and selling drugs.
Well, people,
don't do it.
Angela, I love you, darling. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Next week, people, we have Dan Dix from Press for Truth. live at AmericanFreedomRadio.com. Lifting the Veil with Cari-Lee. Join us. Peace, love, and lollipops.